I want to thank the press for joining us today. My name is Jeff Geffert. I'm the Chief Community Engagement Officer. My contact information is in your packet. If you have any questions after the press conference, after you leave, please follow up by contacting me. We will have a question and answer period after the speakers are finished today, so please hold your questions until that time. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium our first speaker, our board president, Ms. Lorraine Price.
First, let me say that I really appreciate your last song, and I hope we will stand here as a witness to our students, to our staff, and to our community against gun violence. My name is Lorraine Price, and I'm the president of the Santa Fe Public School Board, and I want to welcome you and thank you for coming to this very important press conference. I can't think of a more crucial topic than the safety and security of our students and staff. I would also like to thank the Santa Fe High School Choir for its beautiful music this morning under the direction of Marilyn Barnes. I also want to thank the Student Action Wellers team, the SWAT team.
They're coming in right now.
All right. Thank you. In attendance this morning is one of my fellow board members, Steve Carrillo. Participating in this conference today are our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Veronica Garcia, our Director of Safety and Security, Gabe Romero, from the City of Santa Fe, the Police Department, Mr. Robert Vasquez, the Principal of Santa Fe High School, Carlmont, Santa Fe High School students Sophia Coulson and Student Board Member Willie Wiebe, and the moderator of this press conference, our Chief Community Engagement Officer, Jeff Gabehart. Before I introduce Dr. Garcia, let me say this. You're going to ask me later, so I'm going to say it now. I can't speak for other school board members, but I can speak for myself. There's no way, as a school board member, am I going to support the arming of teachers. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Veronica Garcia. You missed all that wonderfulness.
No, I got it.
Thank you, Ms. Price, Board Member Carrillo, members of the press. We are here today because of the recent events over the school year, most recently in Parkland, Florida. Rightfully so, our community, our students and staff are concerned and many are on edge. They have many questions, and we've done our best to communicate all of the various safety protocols and systems we have in place, and what we propose to do to enhance those systems and protocols. However, we feel that this press conference was necessary to broaden our communication efforts. We thank the members of the media for being here today. I also want to take this opportunity to announce that we will have a community forum to speak directly to members of our community tomorrow, February the 28th at 5:30 at our B.F. Young Professional Development Facility at 1500 Camino Sierra Vista. This information is available at our website at sfps.info. There you will also find a list of frequently asked questions on our safety and security measures, our protocols, and what we are looking at for the future. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Director of Security, Gabe Romero. Mr. Romero has been our director for about 6 years. He comes to us with a strong background in law enforcement, and after 6 years of exemplary service, he will be moving on to be our Director of Capital Improvements and Planning in our Operations Department. I say this because I want the public to know that he will soon be replaced by Mario Salvidres, former Santa Fe Police Department Deputy Chief of Police, where he is retiring from a distinguished background in law enforcement. Mr. Romero will be sharing with you some of the important systems and protocols we have in place. Mr. Romero?
And a graduate of Santa Fe High.
Yes, thank you. And a graduate of Santa Fe High, if you didn't catch that. Thank you, Board Member Price, Board Member Carrillo, and Superintendent for introducing me. Safety, security is a very serious issue, and none more so than current events within our nation requires it to be. So I've always taken my job very seriously and tried to be proactive in preparation for any type of emergency within our schools throughout the district. Some of the things I'd like to share with you, and just to give you an idea of the fantastic work the district has done in preparation, is each classroom has emergency supplies and equipment in there that would help them in case of an emergency, whether that be an evacuation, a shelter in place, or even a lockdown. They have a lot of supplies and equipment that we check regularly to ensure that they have appropriate stocks for that type of event. But more than that, they have a lot of training that goes along with that. I don't know if you knew, but every school does 11 emergency drills a year, every single year. So if your student has been in school for 10 years, they're going to have 111 times that they've drilled or practiced these events. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into that every single day at every single school. Beyond that, there's a system that we have in place that meshes up with our emergency responders. It's called Incident Command System. So when you do have an event, you have a number of people that come together and they manage the event. And not only at the school site, also at the district level, so we can provide them support and supplies and whatever they might need. We mesh very well with the police department responders, the fire department responders, and anyone else, because they all use the same incident command system. So we have a number of people that at each site that are prepared for that sort of thing and how to manage an emergency event. So there's a lot of emphasis that goes into preparation for an emergency. I'd like to talk just a little bit about what we do as preventative measures, because I think that's the most effective way to intervene, and we have intervened with somebody that might be thinking about doing harm to themselves or others within our district. So last year we completed some training with every single administrator, that's like principals, assistant principals across the district, counselors and others, where we trained them in violence threat assessments. So what do you do if a student displays some behavior that's concerning? Because it's been proven that the vast majority of times, at least 92% of the time, there's behavior that's concerning that's been brought to the attention of somebody when a serious event occurs. So we've had that training. These people know what the warning signs are, and even more importantly, they understand how to deal with that student or child in case of there's been a report of some sort of suspicious behavior in regards to that. So I think we have, this is just some of the things that we do across the district. I think we have a pretty robust system, but we're always looking for improvement, and with the events of the recent past, we have to look at what else we can do to improve our systems here within our schools. So thank you very much for your time.
I'd like to elaborate on other systems that we do have in place. We have Beyond the Shooter training, which is active shooter training for adults. And my portion of this press conference is what we intend to do in the future, so I'm going to kind of go back and forth. So with that Beyond the Lockdown or active shooter training that we have for adults, there have been questions from our parents about providing that training to our students. So we intend to bring that question to the Board of Education. There are pros and cons about students having active shooter training because it could potentially put them in harm's way. So I believe that we would recommend age appropriate, perhaps high school, maybe middle school, to look at that in terms of the active shooter training. We have cameras, we have intercoms, we have automatic door locks. You cannot enter our schools or our buildings. Even I can't without, once school's in session, those doors are locked. You have to have a badge to enter into buildings. We want to tighten that up. It's been quite nice for some of our schools. They allow parents to walk their kids to class. However, that does create vulnerability of people in the early morning hours of being able to access those buildings. So we will be looking at tightening up those procedures. We also are going to be implementing, now currently people have to sign in to get into our schools. We will be implementing a new system beginning in April. The contract, I'm believing the board will approve next week to put it into action, is the Raptor System, which will require people now when they visit our schools to actually use a recognized ID. Whether it's an identification card issued by the state or a driver's license. It does an automatic, quick background check. It issues a tag similar to what some of you are wearing right now. It documents when you enter the building and when you leave the building. The other change that we intend to bring to the board is a reprioritization of our SB 9 dollars to implement a Rhino door lock device, which is an automatic door lock device that makes a door pretty much impenetrable. And this adds another layer of security in the case of a lockdown when students and staff are sheltering in place, this other layer of protection. We currently have a wonderful relationship with law enforcement. However, I'm going to, after the election, the mayoral election, I'd like to ask the board for their permission to engage in conversation with the county sheriff and the police department to see if we, in fact, could have armed resource officers in the school. That is something that NMSIA, our New Mexico Public Schools Insurance Authority, sees as preferential to arming staff. And the reason for that is people in law enforcement are well trained in various situations if there is an emergency in terms of the safe use of a firearm. And this is something that obviously, though, would not be decided by me, but really would require board approval. I mentioned, let me see what else, the limiting parent access, we've talked about that. We are also going to increase the regularity of our safety committee meetings and expand the participation. There have been more community members that have expressed an interest to evaluate what we have in place. I think one area of vulnerability that we need to continue to look at is also beyond just the everyday classroom, day-to-day activities of what we can do to increase our security. We also want to strengthen, as was mentioned, behavioral health, access to social work, and our anti-bullying prevention efforts. Because as we've seen in these instances, there were warning signs, but we look at many of these individuals have been disgruntled, have left school in not a very good place. Many may have been bullied for many years, and so we need to look at those signs. And so it's a multi-layered approach, and we want to continue to listen to our families and our students, our staff for their ideas. The See Something, Say Something campaign has really been quite effective, because all of the warnings that we have received have come from students who either saw something on Facebook or in the case of Santa Fe High, found that note and talking to their principals. And I believe that our students are very vested in their safety and the safety and security of the schools. But again, we want to expand that awareness. Mr. Salvidres, who is coming to us from the police department as Deputy Chief of Police, also has indicated that he'd like to take a review with fresh eyes at looking at all of our systems and protocols to see where we can enhance them. And that is it. And if there's other questions, again, I know I left out some of the measures, but if you go to our website and look at the FAQs, and I think the press have them in their packets, I think it will answer some of your questions. Thank you. Oh, who am I introducing? You got it.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And we will be updating the website with information, for example, the community forum tomorrow night, information about the community forums on there, as well as the FAQs. And so as we continue these conversations, we'll be updating the website. At this time, I'd like to introduce Captain Vasquez from the Santa Fe Police Department.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Vasquez. I'm a captain with the Santa Fe Police Department. I oversee our Criminal Investigations Division. Our Deputy Chief, Andrew Padilla, was unable to make it, so he asked I attend in his presence along with Lieutenant Benjamin Valdez and discuss our partnership with the Santa Fe Public Schools. Our partnership with the public schools here in Santa Fe is it's a very strong partnership, and I've been here for 19 years in law enforcement. When I was a young detective, Stan Mascareñas, who's over there, was my sergeant in Crimes Against Children. Then became a deputy chief and retired as deputy chief from the Santa Fe Police Department. He is now a member of the public schools. Now we have Deputy Chief Mario Salvides, who's been in law enforcement for about 20 years. He too is retiring and coming to the public schools. And we've had a long, strong working relationship with Mr. Romero and his staff for the last several years on day-to-day operational activities and then for threats to the schools. Some changes we've done within the Santa Fe Police Department to address the modern threats is pretty much done within the agency. For example, our investigations division, we've changed the way we've operated. We've changed our specialized units to adapt to modern threats and modern crime here in our jurisdiction. For example, our violent crimes unit used to investigate all sexual assault cases, all homicides, and domestic violence, and anything pertaining to a victim who's a human being. Since then, we kind of reorganized our resources. Our Crimes Against Children unit, who used to investigate only crimes against children, is now known as a Special Victims unit. What they take now is they take cases from the Violent Crimes unit. Now they handle domestic violence cases, they handle the sexual assault cases, they handle human trafficking cases, and most importantly, any crime against a child. And they are stationed at the Solace Crisis Treatment Center, where all the resources are at to assist the detectives of those cases, which alleviates our violent crime detectives to focus on violence. We have gang violence, use of a firearm. They can specialize strictly on that. What we've also done too is we've taken away what we used to have in the past was a street crimes unit, and that unit was more so for warrant service. And we noticed a big void within our operational function, which is we had no capability to be proactive to identify potential threats. So what we created within our division is known as an intelligence unit. And what these detectives do is they specialize in proactively searching for clues regarding potential threats within any school. And so we utilize that unit to be proactive with the current threats we've had within our school. They identify threats through social media. Again, that's open source information that they monitor to see if any activities taking place, any threats within a geofence location within school grounds. And going back to our partnerships, like I said before, law enforcement, our first and foremost priority here is our children. And that's also with the school. So we're very short-staffed in patrol and in law enforcement, but they understand if there's a threat to a school or involving a child, everything is dropped and they respond to that threat to address, the need of the child. So just to reassure the public here is that if there's any threat to the school, any threat involving a child, that's our priority. What I'd like to introduce now is our Lieutenant Benjamin Valdez. He oversees our special operations. He's tasked with the training of our personnel on how we respond to the schools and working with the schools for response.
Good morning. My name is Ben Valdez. I'm a lieutenant with the Santa Fe Police Department. I oversee the Special Operations Group. In that group, what we do is we work really closely with Mr. Romero, the Santa Fe Public Schools, and also other private schools in the city of Santa Fe, and private businesses, organizations throughout the city. One thing that we try to do is put out information about beyond the lockdown. We're talking about what to do if someone comes to a location where there's a lot of individuals, oftentimes unarmed individuals, and that suspect has access to victims. So we roll out this training, and it's in line with what Department of Homeland Security recommends, and that's the run, hide, fight doctrine. We provide these recommendations to Santa Fe Public Schools, and they use that information. We help them develop their emergency response plan. What are they going to do if something like that occurs? A lot of stuff that they're discussing today, should they get the high school students involved? All the teachers have been through this training, but one thing we also push out there, and I'm glad they brought it up, was if you see something, say something. A lot of the things we put out there for this protocol to make sure that the schools are safe and do our best to make sure that when you drop off your child in the morning, they come back in either the same or better condition than you dropped them off. That's what the goal is for us, and that's what the goal is for the Santa Fe Public Schools. They want to make sure that parents and students feel safe to come to school, that we don't have to turn this campus, which should be an educational institution, into a guard post with concertina wire and guard towers and stuff like that. We look at the school experience that we experienced. Oftentimes it's similar to what we have here, but again, times have changed. We look at Columbine. Not only has the schools had to change their responses, so has law enforcement. And from each incident, we have to look at it, see what we can do better so we can minimize that loss of life. A couple things we learned from Columbine on the police side, and then something we train our officers. At any time if there's an incident at a school, officers will immediately respond and they'll go to stop the killing from that suspect. That is their main priority. We look at Columbine and all incidents before, the guidance to the school was just go hide in the corner and help them come and they'll be on their way. The officers were told, hold it down until the SWAT team gets here and then we'll do our response. We found that is no longer acceptable for us to do. We're asking our teachers, we're asking our staff members to deny that suspect access to victims. A lot of this, kind of the tidal wave coming forward and trying to get people on board with this because we've been trying to share this with anyone that would hear us. Unfortunately, came after Sandy Hook, when we had all them children that were lost and those teachers and those staff members lost to a tragedy. That opened our country's eyes to say, hey, look, we cannot tolerate this. And unfortunately, it's sad to say it happened again in Parkland. From each incident, we have to look at them and see what can we do better? What can we do to deny these people access to victims? Are there any things we can do to identify on the front end what we can do to address these individuals' issues that are going on? How can we deny them access to weapons? Our recommendations to the school is this, when I come to teach classes, I recommend this. You use what you have in your environment to protect yourself. To decide, again, with the school district, this is going to be something they're going to have to decide about arming teachers. My personal recommendation is use what's available in the classroom. If you deny access to that suspect, to those victims, that's going to work for us, and we're going to be here as soon as we can to make things better for you. This is a concerted effort not only with us, but also with fire, EMS, and the hospitals here in the city. They're all looking out for everyone, not only the schools, but for any major event that happens in the city of Santa Fe and the surrounding area. So please, if you guys have an opportunity, go online, look at what the recommendations are for Run, Hide, Fight, share that with as many people as you can. Look at those things. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't bury your head down in your cell phone. Don't have your head down in the sand saying, it's not going to happen here. Be aware of your surroundings. If something doesn't look right, say something. I see a lot of guests here, and this is one thing we discussed a long time ago, and I'm glad that the district put into place. They discussed how can we go and make sure we have these invisible layers of protection. So a lot of people have name tags on them. That includes me. I have to check in the front office. I have to let them know that I'm here on campus. So they know who's on the campus, they can identify who's here. That's when the safeguards and the invisible layers of protection they have in place, that the children can still come to school and they still feel safe. They still feel safe that they're here to learn. It's a good environment and it's a healthy environment for them to learn. So any support that you can get the school to make sure that they can make all the schools here in the city safe, will be greatly appreciated. And we will continue to work with the Santa Fe Public Schools to go and assist them with those efforts to make sure that the schools are as safe as they can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Valdez and Captain Vasquez. And thank you to the Santa Fe Police Department for all they do for our schools, our students, and our staff. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce another individual who's doing a lot for our schools, our students, and our staff, the principal of Santa Fe High, Carl Morano.
Thank you and welcome to Santa Fe High School. I first of all just wanted to thank all of our district safety and security personnel, along with our superintendent, our school board members, district leadership, our local police department, my wonderful administrative team, my assistant principals, Cheryl Romero, Michael Granado, Mark Moots, our dean of students, Stan Mascareñas, all of my wonderful administrative assistants, and thanking them for their support in handling the recent threats that have been directed and affected us directly here at Santa Fe High School. I want to let everyone know that, once again, we take all threats of violence directed towards our students and staff very seriously. I want to thank our wonderful students here at Santa Fe High School for their continued vigilance in reporting such threats, as well as wanting to keep our school safe. People ask me all the time, do you feel safe here coming to work every day as principal at Santa Fe High School? And although none of us can guarantee that a school shooting won't happen on campus, I can tell you one thing with certainty. Santa Fe High is a great place to be. I enjoy coming to work every single day, and there's not one day that I hesitate not coming to work due to safety concerns. Our staff continues to work hard in ensuring that all of our students are getting a quality education to be college and career ready in a safe, welcoming learning environment. We as a school do not let these threats interfere with all the positive things that take place on this campus day in and day out. In fact, our NJROTC team is a 2-time defending state champion, looking to three-peat here in a few weeks. Our performing arts department, which includes dance, choir, band, orchestra, and guitar, has several students who just qualified for all-state choir. Our Innovate Academy, which includes classes in engineering, computer science, emergent technologies, and research development, continues to engage our students on a daily basis. Our advanced placement program continues to be one of the best in the state, as last year over 70% of our students scored a 3 or higher on the AP exam. Our Culinary Arts department is also one of the best in the state, as we once again qualified for a national competition which will be taking place in a month. And I can go on and on about all of our accomplishments here at Santa Fe High, and many of you have witnessed some of our wonderful students here today with our choir performing, our SWAT team members behind me who again work hard at keeping our school safe. And it is truly an honor to be the principal at Santa Fe High School, and we will continue to do great things, and we will not let recent threats overshadow all the great things that are taking place here at the school. And speaking of great things, I would like to introduce to you 2 of our wonderful seniors who would like to speak to you today, Sophia Coulson and Willie Wiebe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morano, and thank all of you for coming out today. We appreciate the time you have given us to speak today. This is a topic that means a lot to us students, and we are glad to share our voice. My name is Willie Wiebe, and I'm a senior here, and this is Sophie Coulson, who is also a senior, and we are here as representatives to present to the other students opportunities to get involved and alleviate some of our frustrations. We want to speak to some of the things us as students can do to keep our schools safe and to prevent any other tragedies. Thank you.
The issue of gun violence in schools is something that we are all unfortunately taking on. And in the face of one national tragedy after another, we are all really working for solutions. Every student has the opportunity to be active in preventing incidents and creating a safer environment. Students who come forward about threats, concerns, and any warning signs they see are an example. Feeling this responsibility, however, is very difficult, which is why we have proposed a program called Know the Signs. It is from the community of Sandy Hook. It provides research-based programs and practices that help create an awareness and a better understanding of what feeds and perpetuates gun violence. Our school has also organized the Rally for Our Lives, which has been very student pushed, on March 1st on our school's plaza here during lunch. Any student is allowed to speak, and it will provide a more open dialogue on the campus, as that's really important in moving forward. We have to talk about it before it gets better. Our theater department is also putting on a production called 26 Pebbles, March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at 7:33 here in our theater. I'm in that, and it's provided me a very unique experience and perspective on how these tragedies affect people and affect their communities. It is about the community of Sandy Hook and their journey in the face of tragedy, taken from real interviews in the town. It resonates with the current energy of our country and community, and you're also supporting our school by coming to it. It is a frustrating and divisive time, but we can help ourselves heal and move forward one step at a time. We can change the way we interact and treat each other. We can be kind instead of isolating, as much of the problem comes from isolation. We can be encouraging rather than hateful, because even if nothing that I have previously said connects with you, you can start by simply influencing the environment around you. We respect the actions taken by our school and the police department and the school board and the district, as they are trying to protect us in all the ways that they can. However, if you're still frustrated and you want to get involved, you can contact Mr. Morano, the school board, the legislature, the news. There is more we can do than angrily curse those above us. If you dislike the actions that are or aren't being taken, then speak up. I know that many students, including myself and Willie, are doing that and will continue to do that. Thank you and good afternoon.
To communicate to each other, and we've asked our parents to please tell their children that we take all threats seriously. We don't consider a threat a prank or a joke. It will result in student discipline, and in some cases, it has resulted in arrests. So again, we do take all threats seriously. There was one question that came up that I do need to address, and that is, why did we not close school here at Santa Fe High on Friday based on the last Facebook post threat that actually originated out of Ohio and then was, I think, tailored to Santa Fe High School and other schools in the state? And working with law enforcement, it was our collaborative decision that it did not warrant that. And one thing that I will say personally, as a mother and a grandmother, I have children who are the ages of teachers in our schools, and I have grandchildren who are the same ages of our students in schools. And I take every decision about whether to close school or informing parents with the same care that I would do if my own family were in those schools. It is something that we take to heart and take very seriously. And with that said, I believe we are ready to close the conference and take questions. Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, we will be taking questions from the press. We encourage the community members that are here today, if you have questions or concerns, to please join us tomorrow at our community forum. Again, 5:30 at BF Young. Information about the community forum is on the website. And any members of the press, if you are interested, after the press conference today, Miranda Viscoli from New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence is here, and our SWAT team, and they have their banners, and Miranda informed me that she's willing to take questions about the banners and the efforts of our SWAT team as well. So at this time, are there any questions from the press? Yes, Robert.
Thank you. Good morning. A question for either the superintendent and or the captain or both of them. Do you think at this point armed resource guards of any kind would be a good action? I know you said you're going to discuss it. And I'm also curious from both the superintendent's perspective and the captain's perspective, commenting on what Board President Ryan Price said, what you're feeling about this argument about arming teachers. So twofold question. I'd like to hear from both of you if possible.
Dr. Garcia?
I think it's worthwhile having a conversation with the Board of Education about their feelings in terms of armed resource officers, which would be trained police officers in collaboration with the city or their county. There were grants at one time where that was done. I think it was called, was it Cops in Schools? And so there was a federal grant. It has been done. It has been successful. It is a form of community policing where the police get to get a feeling for the climate of the school. They know the faculty, they know the students, and can have a better sense of the pulse of what's happening in the school. That may provide another layer of comfort. Again, I can only speak for myself, but there doesn't seem to be a compelling reason to arm faculty and staff. They do not have the training they're trained to be educators. They may incidentally know how to use a firearm, but I think that there could be significant consequences and harm done. But again, that is a policy decision that the Board of Education would have to make, and it may require even statutory authority to do so. Did I answer your questions?
Thank you. Yeah. Captain, could I get the same question from you, sir?
Sure. To add to Dr. Garcia as well, that's a good question we can ask our new mayor when they take office, the administration, and see what efforts we can take for a school resource program. One discussion we've had within our agency for the last several years is looking at rehiring retired officers to fulfill that role, since we have other needs as well within our organization to respond to other needs within the community. So that's one option we'd like to discuss as well, and get the support from legislation support to determine if we can rehire retired officers to be in the schools as a school resource officer.
Thank you, sir. You have any thoughts on arming teachers? Can I put you on the spot with that?
Sure. It's a discussion. It's an option that has been presented. Obviously, there's some concern, as expressed by Dr. Garcia. There's concern law enforcement has with that as well. It would take a lot of training, for one, significant training to have these teachers trained. But we're asking a lot of our teachers to do already with separate additions to the curriculum, additional responsibilities for a teacher, now asking them to be armed and trained and maintain that certification. In law enforcement, we train hundreds of hours a year in law enforcement. We're trained how to use our weapons, and asking a teacher to do such a thing is plenty. So it's a discussion that has to be discussed beyond powers of me, and a debate, a national debate, a community debate. But me personally, I feel that we need to have the right people within the school. They would be retired law enforcement officers, school resource officers who have received the training and understand how to use a firearm.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question for the students and also for Dr. Garcia. For students in general, guns in school, whether guards or teachers or police, what are y'all's views on guns in schools in general? Who should have them, who shouldn't have them?
Okay, Aaron, we'll start with the students.
All right, in my opinion, I think every time you see an armed guard in a school, every time you know your teacher is armed, it reminds you of these other tragedies across the country, and it's taken away from your education. You are no longer focused on what you're here to do. You are reminded that you could be a victim any day. So in my opinion, I think armed guards will take away from our focused education.
I think that arming teachers is not necessarily irresponsible, but I think it is disrespectful to the job that they have been granted here. Teaching, especially teaching in public schools, is already hard enough, and I think from every student's perspective, we can see that teaching is a difficult job. And as you said, that it takes lots of training. I don't think that is the job that teachers came here to do. In terms of armed guards, I think that is the most, not necessarily moderate, but the most of a compromise I've heard so far. I mean, as Willie said, it is a reminder, but some actions must be taken to protect us. So.
Thanks.
I got a question.
Okay, now,
And just real quick, Dr. Garcia, you had mentioned SB9, some money from SB9 going toward added security measures. Can you just go over that again and
Yes.
is there a dollar amount? that you
Yes.
have in mind?
And do you know the dollar amount, Gabe? What is it? Just tell me.
For the Rhino wear, it's about $325,000.
It's about $325,000 for the Rhino-ware door locking devices. And so we would look at some reprioritization of those dollars. Safety and security is a priority, and we will be taking that recommendation to the Board of Education.
Thanks.
I saw a couple hands there.
Oh, never mind. Next.
Do you want to go ahead,
I
Matt?
just wanted to know from Dr. Garcia, these recommendations that you are considering, you just mentioned that some money may come from the budget that we already have in place, but are they subject to, the recommendations subject to approval by the Board of Education, by the school district, by the state legislature?
It wouldn't require legislative approval, rather from the Board of Education.
Just that, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Robert.
Thank you. Same thing. I'd like to hear from the super and the police department. Is the wave of fake threats making this more complex and difficult?
Fake threats absolutely does make it more complex. It creates discord, fear, anxiety. It costs a lot of money. It pulls resources away, particularly from the police, to be able to do the jobs that they have to do to address these fake threats. It disrupts the educational environment, as our students just said, because then they're concerned and the staff are not able to focus on our educational programming, which is why I think I've probably released 3 or 4 robocalls, and it does seem to help when I have said to parents and families, please talk to your children and tell them that we will not consider a threat as a joke, a prank, didn't really mean it. There will be significant consequences, from suspension all the way to expulsion, which happened in our district, as well as potential repercussions leading to an arrest from law enforcement. So we're taking it very, very seriously. You're not going to get off the hook that it was a joke. And so that's why we have stressed to our parents and families that that's how they can be partners, to not, put forth these fake threats.
Thank you, ma'am.
From the law enforcement perspective, for an example, last week's school threat depleted our investigations division. All our detectives were activated. Our patrol teams were activated. We had our swing shift patrol team come in 2 hours early to assist with calls in the field and maintain law enforcement presence in the schools. So it wasn't just Santa Fe High School that was occupied with law enforcement. It was every school within the community, within our jurisdiction, was occupied by a law enforcement officer, either one or multiple. On the other hand, too, we have, like I said before, our detectives who are specializing in modern threats and modern crime. What they've done is they've been more proactive in monitoring this social media activity and doing more investigative research on where this postings are coming from. So again, going back to last week's threat, our detectives coordinated with other agencies within New Mexico, and we discovered that we had the same threat being posted around central and northern New Mexico. So those agencies, which are smaller than Santa Fe, also had their resources depleted, responding to their schools for a similar threat. Law enforcement, we take those threats very seriously. When we do identify the individual, we do identify the appropriate charge and forward it to juvenile probation office or to DA's office for prosecution.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Were these upgrades, was it after the Parkland shooting that you guys have been discussing this, or has it been going on for a long time?
Is that, okay.
We actually, before Parkland, had already had the discussions both on the Rhino door locks and on the Raptor system. As a matter of fact, we had looked at a legislative appropriation for the door locks, and I think it's something that the district had been investigating even a couple of years prior to that. The Raptor system was also already, those wheels were already turning prior to Parkland.
Robert?
Thanks. Can I ask the board members questions?
So we are going to be sticking around after. I know Stephen Carrillo, board member Carrillo, is here as well.
All right,
And many of the speakers will be sticking around after if you want to follow up with an individual interview.
Question for the students, wondering if they could respond to kind of the movement that's been happening that's fueled by high schoolers.
I can definitely speak to that. Seeing the students at Parkland, the survivors, standing out and speaking out and really trying to make change has been very empowering for me, and I know it has been for other students. And I know oftentimes young voices are undermined and they're belittled, and which is also why I respect that we've been asked to speak here. But we are educated and we are aware, and we do see these things and we deal with these things every day. So I think the movement is very important, and there's a place in it for every student.
Yeah, I think it's a very impressive movement. We're kind of in the point of our lives where we're not really children anymore, and we got to start dealing with this stuff you guys have dealt with. And it's just, I think us as students have a really powerful voice. We're listened to quite a bit, and this is very powerful. This is a very good tool to use, and we got to face the reality that we're gonna be exposed to the world you guys made for us, and it's unfortunately killing us right now. So something has to change, and what these students are doing in Parkland and across the country is very empowering, and I think there's going to be a big change coming.
And that is one way that students can be involved, is not allowing this conversation to fade until this happens again. And so we thank you for your efforts. We're going to end the press conference at this time. Again, many of the speakers and board member Stephen J. Carrillo will be able to stick around for any individual interviews. And our Student Wellness Action Team as well, they'll stick around if there are any questions about their banners and their efforts. I want to thank you for your time. You have my contact information on the programs or the agendas there. If you're a member of the press and you didn't receive one of those agendas, please see me after the press conference. And again, we want to thank you for your time.
Thanks for doing this. Thank you all.
Yeah.